St. Louis of France combined in his person several vocations. He was an example of the influence that a person in authority can have when that person hands over the reins to the Supreme King. He was already king at the age of 12. He married Margaret of Provence and they had 11 children. We have from his own pen the advice that he gave to his son, who was being groomed to reign, of course, and it is a gem of spirituality for somebody in authority. Alas, down the line, the message that the Lord gave to France, to the king directly, one of his descendants, was to consecrate the country to the Sacred Heart. It was given to understand that that would keep it safe. It didn't happen, and we know that soon afterwards, when the chance had been missed, there was complete turmoil, the revolution and all that went with it. And in the end, the King of France was guillotined. So we need to listen to these warnings. He lived at a time when a belated reaction took place to what was threatening Europe, but especially that part of Europe which was specifically close to the heart of Christians, that place where there was the miracle of the Holy Light, which still happens to this day, the Holy Sepulchre. Well, this miracle of the Holy Light was known by the Muslims, and it was causing conversions to Christianity. And an order was given from high authority in the Muslim world to destroy that source of problems. And so they were starting to demolish the Holy Sepulchre. Other bits in the area suffered as well. But when it started on this, Christians said, "Thus far and no further." By the way, that explains why when you go there now, you only see a mangle of the Holy Sepulchre. We have only a small part of the stone on which the angel sat. It's called the angel stone, and it's on a plinth, essentially. And the structure we have of the Holy Sepulchre doesn't really resemble a sepulchre anymore. It's complex, the issue. But this was the last straw when they started to demolish the Holy Sepulchre. And so, eventually, the West especially realized the only way was to use the language that they understood. And only then did they resort to military force. Initially, it was successful because Europe was united. Eventually, it didn't succeed completely, but they did some sparing of what could have led to total destruction. And it was in this context that he lost his life, eventually. I believe in Carthage, a king willing to go and make eventual self-sacrifice with his person so as to defend what was precious to his faith. It's not indifferent, and we tend to dismiss the Crusades. We forget that there was actually self-sacrifice involved. There was no certainty at all that they would ever return. These were young men. And by the way, the faith was taken seriously when they went out there. A lot of prayer was going on. Now, there are other areas in this Holy King's life which are less known. His personal life, which was quite heroic, his goodness to the poor, but there are other things too. One day, a miracle took place, and it was whispered to the king that the Lord was appearing there in the host. And he had the instant reaction not to look. And he did so, explaining later on that the motive was that if he looked, he would lose forever the merit of faith. And so even though before them the Lord was appearing with his holy face in the Blessed Sacrament, he just looked straight down and did not wish to benefit from that miracle. It happened to somebody else as well, closer to us in time. A certain Jean at Ulm in France. The same exactly. He looked the other way, so as not to lose the merit of grace. By the way, this miracle has happened quite a few times in Christian history. I remember reading that it happened in the 70s in a church where at the time in France they were doing the devotions of Holy Thursday, and the Lord appeared in the tabernacle, or over the tabernacle, or in the veil of the tabernacle where the Lord was being adored until midnight, and everyone who came saw it, and even those who came in late saw it and immediately exclaimed. And so that was just a little sign that it's the same presence that we have as all these holy men who went before us, the unchanging presence of our King. Now, what this tells us is this: we in our generation are on the same track of time as all these kings, queens, paupers, beggars who have gone before us. All those who have marched through time have had the same chance, the same brief innings. Some, like this king, made the maximum. Others, like Judas, messed it up irreparably. It's important to think of that because grace has a certain constant in its working. It's gentle and asks humbly for permission, because God does not command or bully. Like a perfect gentleman, he proposes. And then our part is important. We can reject. Collaboration. Let's be aware of this, because quite a few of us here have life ahead of us, and therefore before we live it, it's important to be aware that it won't come a second time. Going to school and university are milestones, and they're points of pause. This is a new chapter. I'm going to live it well. I just conclude. Another great saint, closer to us in time, a specialist of the youth, St John Bosco, had a strange vision or dream one day. He saw a good number of his boys going to the wrong place, and he didn't understand, given the work he'd done in forming them. And he was given to understand, yes, if they carry on, these boys that you can see are going to end up losing their soul, and he was given 3 reasons. Bad books, translate, bad internet, whatever it might be. Bad company, translate, how do I spend the weekend, the night with, who do I see for long periods of time? Because there's an old proverb actually in French, dis-moi qui tu hantes, tell me whom you haunt, hang around with, et je te dirai qui tu es, and I'll tell you who you are. We're influenced by peers, is it not true? We want to be cool and don't want to be in any way exceptional. It leads to being like others also in the dark side. And the third reason he saw was bad habits. It's what we get into and can't get out of. Those secret things that we might get up to in our mind or in our privacy. And now one big one is what a lot of people are doing when no one's looking into bad sites on the internet. Do you know that statistically the most visited websites right now in the cybersphere are those of hard porno? Just be aware, it's massive. So these translate very well into our time. And John Bosco was horrified and spoke clearly to his pupils. This is serious stuff.